Yo, what is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka J Phoenix. In this video, we're going to be talking about this new moon in Libra that we're going to be having. That's going to be happening early Tuesday morning around 8 a.m. or so here on the East Coast. So we still have a little bit of time before then. The moon is currently in Libra at the moment. It's actually conjunct Venus at the moment. I'm actually having my Venus return. I have Venus at 8 degrees of Libra, and Venus is like right there at 7 degrees. So this moon's conjuncting my Venus. With Venus on my Venus return. So that's pretty interesting. I'm also going through my Mars return right now. So Mars is about to hit the degree that it is in my chart. It's at 18 degrees right now, conjunct Mercury. And it's about to hit, I think it's going to be 21 degrees is where my Mars is, right? So yeah, I'm getting like 2 returns, which isn't uncommon. It isn't uncommon. Once you start to like learn about astrology and kind of understand things, like if you know someone's sun, you can realistically know where their Mercury is, where their Mars is, or where their Venus is. You can at least guess within several signs. Like say, like for me, example, I'm a Sun in Scorpio, so that means that my Mercury can only be in Sagittarius, Scorpio, or Libra, right? And then you do it for Venus, except you go further out. So if my Sun is in Scorpio, that means that my Venus can only be in either Libra, it could be in Virgo, it could be in Scorpio, it could be in Sag, or it could be in Cap. And then Mars, you go even further out. You could pretty much, like I said, you could pretty much figure that out. And it's a pattern, it's all math. And, you know, once you start to really kind of know some of the basics of astrology, you can kind of figure out a lot of that stuff out. So it's not uncommon for people to, around or near their birthday time, to have multiple returns. They'll have solar returns. You can have your Mars return, your Mercury, your Venus. It's not uncommon for that to happen. So because those planets, they travel relatively close together, and they don't really get that too far apart, although you can have, you know, the opposition really, and the only opposition that you can really have it with is Mars and the Sun, which doesn't happen super often. So but that is possible. So in any event, welcome to this new moon in Libra. Now we have to, of course, think back to the last new moon in Libra that we had. That was a solar eclipse that we had last year at 10 degrees of Libra. This new moon is going to be happening at 28 degrees, so there's a whole 18 degrees that we've covered here, from new moon to new moon. And of course, being that this is Libra, being that this is the end of Libra too, and that this is actually the decan ruled by Mercury, this is going to make for a rather mercurial energy, a very mercurial new moon. And of course, what's Libra all about? It's about finding the balance and the harmony and things, right? But we had to consider that this new moon does have Venus with it, which is nice. So that's going to give it a nice little boost. There's also an interesting thing with this new moon, just with a lot of the other aspects that are kind of happening around it. It's going to be, of course, in square to this Jupiter and Cancer, which Jupiter and Cancer is such a weird energy right now. I feel like Jupiter and Cancer is literally, if I had to give Jupiter and Jupiter and Cancer like a metaphor, it's that person on the side of the road that's holding up a sign. And the sign isn't divisive. The sign isn't leaning one way or another on any particular issue. Jupiter's literally holding up a sign that's just saying, be compassionate to yourself, or be more kind to yourself, or expand upon the good in yourself, or find peace. It's not necessarily trying to convey a certain, message from any one particular ideology. It's not necessarily trying to convince you or sway you into any one particular ideology. Jupiter's literally just there holding up the sign being like, yo, chill out a little bit. Ironically, right? Because Jupiter is anything but chill. Jupiter just wants to expand and grow and have fun and be the party. And that's the thing about Jupiter. Jupiter will expand regardless if something's good or not. That's the thing about Jupiter. But because Jupiter is not really doing like a ton of stuff here, and it hasn't been, it's starting to now, but because it hasn't been doing like a ton of stuff here, we're getting out, of course, of this T-square that we had with Jupiter, Chiron, and the Sun. That was major that we experienced over the last couple of days. So if you felt any tension at all, it was probably from that, especially leading up to all these protests that happening over the weekend. Jupiter is literally just saying, yo, just find your peace, find your comfort in a way. And yes, growth does happen outside of our comfort zone. But like I said, this is about where can we find our peace, where can we find our happiness, and where can we not get overly obsessed with the details in life because we're not going to have all the details. This is really about putting that one step in front of the other and not obsessing over the way that it looks or the way that it's coming across. Especially if you actually are getting the desired results that you want. Sometimes we will get upset about the desired results because of the way that it's packaged or the person that delivers it. That's the other thing too about it. It's like I feel like this is going to be a new moon that's going to deliver messages that will resonate with you, but it's going to be coming from people that you don't want it to come from, or people that you don't enjoy, or you don't like, or you disagree with, and that's okay. You're not going to agree with everybody and everything. Remember, this is Libra energy. Got to find that balance in the harmony and compromise. But don't be surprised if you hear something, it's like, that's a good point from someone that you generally just don't agree with and just don't get along with it, don't see eye to eye with. And then there's going to be that stubbornness that's going to come up that's going to want you to reject the message just because of who the messenger is. When that's not really what's important. It's the message is what's more important, not the messenger. Anybody can come on here and make a video. Anybody can go out and to speak inspiration. Anybody can have the idea of the solution. We get so caught up on the messenger that we forget about the message itself. So if there's one thing about this new moon, I'm just channeling it right now before I show you the charts. If there's anything, is that do not shoot the messenger. The messenger is not the enemy. That's just the way that it's packaged. The truth is in the message itself, the essence itself of what is coming across, what they're saying, what they're speaking, the emotions, the energy that's invoking, the images in our head, the imagination that it is invoking. That is what's the most important. But if we get so caught up on the external reality, we get so caught up on that, and because of whatever that person may have did, or their experiences leading up to who they are in this moment, and your experiences leading up to who you are in this moment, means that in many ways you guys are diametrically opposed. But if they're saying something that is really resonating with your soul and your spirit and your heart, don't reject the message just because it's coming from someone that you don't like, or you despise, or you just don't agree with. Because then it's just going to go right over your head. You're going to miss it. And the inverse is probably true. You may get a message from someone that you do like, that you do enjoy, that you generally agree with, that goes against your spirit, that goes against what your heart wants. And that doesn't mean that you stop following that person, you cut them out or whatever like that. It just means in that moment, you'd be like, nah, I don't agree with you on that one. Generally, I would agree with you, but I don't agree with you on that one. And that's okay. Because we don't want to get caught up in this sort of prideful, egoic stance when it comes to how we're interacting with people and the information that we're taking in. We don't want to get so caught up on that we care more about the way that the message is packaged, the way that it's being presented or who it's being presented from, than the actual message itself, right? So let's hop into this, right? As I say, I am making this right now here Sunday, just afternoon, if you will. Got to get this done so I can make some food and watch some football. Go Birds. Anyways, we got this moon here with Venus. Like I said, it is in Libra now. So, like I said, we're reacting and responding to more Libra-like things. Find the balance, find the harmony. Libra also loves drama, but we're going to be reacting and responding more to this stuff now, right? And honestly, after kind of a weekend like we had where the moon was in Virgo, most of it, especially during a lot of the protests and everything like that, and especially considering what the things have been around and a lot of the energy and the atmosphere and the universe right now, or at least on this planet right now, this Venus in Libra is, like I said, it's trying to find, that balance and that harmony, but it's also about kind of like weighing things out, weighing our conversations out, weighing our values out. What do we hold in higher esteem? What do we not hold as in high esteem? Now we got to also consider, though, with this moon as it travels throughout the space, right? And it's going to make some pretty interesting aspects, right? So we already saw the trine to Pluto and Uranus. So we had the grid air trine. In fact, I'll just go back just a little bit so you guys can see what the moon did here. So moon 1 degree, making a trine 0, making a trine 1, both of them, right? And with Uranus and Saturn, of course, sextiling who? Neptune here at 0 degrees of Aries, getting ready to move back into Pisces. We only have a few more days until it actually will fully move into that space, right? So now let's go forward to the new moon itself. We're going to see that's going to be happening here early in the morning, right? Oh my gosh, I got it exact. Look at that. 28 degrees, 21 minutes. This is going to be happening at approximately 8:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's here in North America, right? And we were going to see, of course, that this moon does join up with that square over to Jupiter and the opposition to Chiron. Even though it's not exact, because the sun is involved and because Jupiter is involved, the two largest energies, or at least planets with, well, the sun's not a planet, but the two largest, you got the largest planet, and then of course you have the sun itself, are in square with each other, with the moon as well, so a new moon, and then opposing Chiron. This has a large orb of influence, so you're definitely going to feel this. And just pretty much continuing off of the entire thing I was talking about with Jupiter mediating this battle between the Sun in Libra and this Chiron in Aries. Now the Moon's going to be meeting up with this space, and of course, we're going to start to feel things more from the Sun's perspective. We're not going to really feel things from Chiron's perspective until a couple weeks from now, once the Moon gets all the way over there. Of course, by that time, that Sun's going to be like halfway through Scorpio. So that's going to be, or almost halfway through Scorpio, right? So, and if we go back just a little bit to when they actually did square the 24, 24, 24, this was back on Friday, right? So we kind of, as far as like the exact energy, the side that we're going to feel things from first is that Sun in Libra. We're not going to really feel it from the Chiron aspect, or at least we're going to be reacting and responding more to the Sun's side of things. Because when the Moon was in Jupiter, it was approaching and the energy was building, but it wasn't quite exact yet. But considering the fact that this is Jupiter, the Sun, these energies have large influences and large orbs. So it was approaching. It was something that was building up, but it wasn't quite there yet. So we're going to officially feel it more from, like I said, this point of view right here, from the Sun's point of view. Now, we also have to take a look that while this conjunction is happening here in Libra, we have this conjunction happening over here in Scorpio. Mercury is going to pass over Mars. It'll be at 20 degrees of Scorpio. And Black Moon Lilith is here as well, just to add a little bit more spice to it. Like I said, this is, and remember, what did I say? Mercury is the messenger, right? Mars does bring like this warrior kind of like energy. It brings a lot of action, a lot of fire energy. And there's Lilith there, which is definitely going to be bringing up a lot of these deep fears, especially psychologically. So this is why I'm saying don't shoot the messenger, right? Don't shoot the messenger just because even if they say something that you actually agree with, like on a soul level, but because of who it is and the way that it's packaged, that you don't want to hear that. You want it to come from someone that you like. That's dangerous. It's actually really dangerous. I feel like, especially right now, it is time, because then at that point you are overly investing in the Chiron and Aries energy. I'm just going to keep it 100 with you. You're overly investing in the Chiron Aries energy if you're overly concerned about how the message is packaged, or at least who it's coming from. Now, that's not to say that we need to go completely into Libra world here, because you got to remember that he's not this sun isn't strong like at all. It's not strong at all. Like, I gotta show you guys. Let's see if it'll. Let's see if it'll let me. Let's see if it will let me do what I want it to do. It's doing the window. Oh, see, there you go. Uh-oh. You don't see that? Okay. Yeah, so y'all can see that, right? All right, cool. So, yeah, this sun is not very strong at all, right? It is at -9. Like, it's not strong. And that moon is only at +1. So, it's not very strong. You know what is strong, though? Of course, Venus is strong. Why is Venus strong? It's in its home sign. It's happy. Why else is it strong? Well, the place that it's exalted, Pisces, Saturn is there. Oh, why is that a big deal? Well, because Saturn exalts in Libra, right? So there's some mutual reception. Yeah, 26 degrees versus 9 degrees. So yeah, it's the they're not aspecting each other exactly, but just simply being in those spaces does help. Who's the second strongest planet? Saturn. It's interesting, right? Venus and Saturn are the strongest planets, right? Even Mercury is not that strong. It's at -5. So, like I'm saying, like, we can get so caught up on the messenger and the way that's being presented, right? Jupiter's at +5, Mars is at +5. But that's the thing about this. So, we really, and Venus is going to, because they're strong, that's where, in many ways, the energy is. That's where the propensities are. So, this Venus in Libra, right? It obviously at home it feels good here, is wanting to find a balance, and it can be a little bit idealistic, Venus, while it's in Libra, believe it or not. I have this energy, right? I have it in the, well, technically, depending upon what sign, like what chart you use, it's either the 10th or the 11th. I generally say it's in my 10th though. So that's the thing about it. Like, I can sometimes get a little idealistic in my relationships, especially when it pertains to like career. And a lot of times I will, in many ways, kind of sacrifice the things that I really want to do just to help other people out. You know, that's just something that is kind of a tendency. Now Venus and Libra in the 10th could also use people to get to the top in many ways, but I don't necessarily. And it's about like, if it's in a bad aspect, then, or if I'm using it in an incorrect way, then that shit can come back and bite me in the ass because of all my 12th house Scorpio energy anyways. So it's like, I really can't do some of the things that other people do when it comes to work, relationships, and career, and building legacy and stuff. Because if I do, that shit will just come back and bite me in the ass, harder than other people. And it eventually comes for everybody. But because of all of my 12th house energy, especially like Mars, Pluto, like conjunct right there in the 12th, like, I could unknowingly have enemies, you know. 12th house is enemies. It's hidden enemies too. That's the other thing about it. So that's the thing about it. This Venus here, along with all this energy, like I said, it is boosting this new moon, but it's not super strong. Remember, the sun's still at fall position, and it's not like it's going to get much better when it goes into Scorpio either. Not at least initially. So, and that's the thing about it. The sun is losing power. If you think about it from like an actual standpoint, it's not like the sun itself is losing power, but our perspective of the moon, of the sun, from our vantage point, and how, at least here in the northern hemisphere, the sun is going to be out less and less and less, which means that we have less daylight, which means that we have less power, which means that the plants get less energy from the sun, which means that they can't produce as much, chlorophyll via photosynthesis, which means that the leaves break down and the leaves fall and they lose their pigment. So the sun is losing energy. It's losing vitality. Not saying that Libras and Scorpios and whatever don't have vitality. I'm just saying that the sun is losing its vitality as far as the way that we perceive the sun from our vantage point here. At least if you're in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, it's the reverse. It's gaining power. You always remember that. Although, so it's not, like I said, This is not like, I know a lot of times people with like their new moon stuff, or they want to be like, all right, set your goals, so in your manifestations, your vision boards, and all this stuff. And I think that that stuff is great. I do think that with these new moons, like I said, with the whole full moon energy, that was the moment of releasing this new moon energy. It is in many ways, I don't, it's, I guess it is a time, it's more of a time for growth. So I'm working through my thoughts too. Is that moment of growth. You're not necessarily releasing anything. I think this is more of, there's sort of an allowance of these natural processes to kind of grow, or where in many ways are in an examination period. We're examining as that sapling kind of breaks through the top of the soil, right? We're examining what it is that we planted. So the new moon and many, so it's like, and this is from the previous new moon, right? Um, we're examining. Okay, so the last new moon is what I planted. Okay, we've gone through the full moon cycle, and now now the full moon is like it's releasing the fruit, if you will, and now the fruit goes into the soil and the seeds, and then something else grows, right? So now we're starting to see, especially with it being Libra, this is like kind of like a harvest time. Virgo, Libra is kind of like harvest time, harvest like energy, right? So look back a year ago to the last new moon that was in Libra, especially because it was a solar eclipse. More than likely, there were some interesting, powerful things that happened around that time, or at the very least, faded things. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the biggest things, but definitely faded things. So look back to the last time that there was the new moon, right? So that new moon happened on what, October 2nd of last year. So if you think back around to like the beginning of October of last year, where were you? What were you doing? What was happening? You know, and then fast forward to now and look at where things are. I could look right now. It's like, yeah, I have the same job, but there are a lot of things that are different. I wasn't in school last semester. I wasn't in school last October. Um, as far as like work stuff has definitely changed for me, especially considering that you know this technically would have been in like what, it would have been in my 11th house technically for me. So, but at least, well, actually, no, not sure. I'm thinking about it. That new moon, probably, since it was 10 degrees, it was probably right at the end of my 10th house, probably going into my 11th house. It was like really, really close. I think it was like right at the beginning of my personal 11th house, but it's like right on that cusp. So, but yeah, think back a year ago, wherever Libra is in your chart and how that area is going to be pretty different from where it is right now. I could definitely say that. I'm working in the same place, but it's definitely gotten a facelift. It's definitely different. Some of the people aren't there that were there last year. Thank God. um, and things have changed, right? So you just look back and see how things have progressed. Now, 28 degrees, 2 plus 8 reduces down to 1, right? 2 plus 8 is 10, and 10 reduced down to 1. 1 is the sun. So this is actually a pretty, in many ways, it's kind of a simple new moon. It's about, okay, where can you find the one in things? Not the divisiveness, not the divided, not the he versus she, the red versus blue, the Republican versus Democrat, blah, blah, blah. Where can you find the oneness? And that's really what it comes down to. Now, you have to start in here, though. That's the thing about it. You're going to have to start in here in order to really, for you to find that oneness. Oh, okay, let's see. Oh, what is going on here? I wonder if I just X out of this one. Yeah, and then just come back to this. So that's what I want to do. And center this guy back. Yep. So yeah, like I said, it's about coming down to the oneness. Honestly, I think even just with the channeling earlier, I think that's really the main key with this new moon is the messages that come through. Don't get so hooked and caught up on who the messenger is, but pay attention to the actual message. Like I said, at the time of this new moon, Mercury moves past Mars. Mars, of course, wants to act and it's a little bit more impulsive. Mercury is a little bit more logic and kind of wants to think things through, but Mercury is also fast too. That's the thing about it. Mercury is also fast. But we also have to remember that this Mercury is going to retrograde in Sagittarius. So we're coming up on a Mercury retrograde in Sag. And Mercury, like I said, doesn't like to be in Sag. I had that in my chart as well. So I'm going through multiple returns at the same time, which, like I said at the beginning, that's pretty freaking common. So that's the thing about this. There's sort of this interesting oscillation between our mind and the way that we think things and the way that we speak, and of course the way that we act and respond, and especially more from like an impulsive aspect with that Mars energy. So, but like I said, they're still conjunct, and Mercury, like I said, it still likes quickness as well. So I think this is about like, we don't need to hesitate. There's going to be, maybe a propensity to want to hesitate, but that's why you really have to come within and find that oneness, so you're not hesitating and you're not just stuck. That's the thing about this. So like Mercury may give us an idea. Maybe we want to think through it a little bit, try to wait things out. We have to remind ourselves, okay, what's going to bring oneness? What is going to bring oneness? And then you act accordingly. And you don't have to hesitate. You don't wait. You move, right? If you're constantly overthinking things. And that's the thing. This energy is probably going to be tough for people with mental health issues, with people that have anxiety, depression, because you're going to be so busy trying to weigh everything the fuck out that you're not going to be able to act and move accordingly. And then you're kind of in like this low-key flight or fight mode, because it's like you freeze. That's the other thing about Scorpios. There can be some freezing aspects with this too. I would not be surprised if we see, and I know it's kind of early, and it might not necessarily, it's probably going to happen in places where it normally would, but I would not be surprised if we see some earlier freezes for this winter coming up. And I know fall technically just started. We still have all of Scorpio season and Sag before we actually get to winter, but would not be surprised if we get like a blast of winter energy, especially once that sun moves into Scorpio as well. Because like I said, Scorpio, it's fixed water, so it's ice. Not only that, but you can see that we don't have much longer before Neptune goes into Pisces, right? So we have Tuesday, right? And then immediately Wednesday, we have bam. That sun's going to go into Pisces. The sun's going to go, it's going to be at the end of Libra. Neptune is going to go into Pisces, right? And I think it's just a few hours later. I'm pretty sure it's going to be that evening where we see that sun enter into Scorpio, right? So bam, going into Thursday, right? Going into Thursday, we're going to see the sun go into Scorpio, and Neptune would have already been in Pisces, and then we're blasted with all this water energy. Neptune, Saturn, the North Node, Black Moon Lilith, Mercury, Mars, the Moon, Sun, Jupiter, all of this water energy. So that means we're about to just get a wave of emotion right now, a wave of energy right now. And we're going to have to know how to move within this space and not get stuck and not get frozen, right? Because we want it to look a certain way and we want to have a big plan. That's the interesting thing about this energy. It's hard to have a foolproof plan right now that's not going to fail. There's going to be some aspect of a plan that might fail, that's going to fall through. Especially because, like I said, this Neptune is coming back into Pisces, so we're having to revisit all of this old stuff again. And now, let's say the ruler of Pisces is back there, so Neptune's going to be feeling a little bit stronger, but Neptune's going to come home to it, and Neptune's going to be like, yo, Saturn, yeah, what did you do to the place? Oh, I know I got here a little bit before you and stuff, but yeah, I did what I could. I just kind of cleaned up a few things here and there and stuff. And, and Neptune's gonna be like, nah, Saturn, no, Saturn, no. He's like, Saturn's like, what? I just try to clean things up. And Neptune's like, no, I thrive in the mess. I thrive in the confusion. I thrive in the what. That's what Neptune's gonna be like when he comes back home to Pisces. He's gonna be like, Saturn, what did you do? Why are you cleaning stuff up before? No, it's like, and that's what we're going to be doing. That in many ways what we're going to be doing. We're going to be scrummaging through the memories and the nostalgia, and Saturn. We're going to discover that Saturn had already discarded and thrown things out before we can even go back and try and be like, no, like I kept that thing because of this one particular memory and this one feeling that it gave me, and I just wanted to hold on to it. And Saturn's like, dude, that's a freaking candy wrapper from like 5 years ago. Why are you still holding on to that? And then we're gonna be dealing with the emotion of that. Why are you still holding on to that? So, like I said, this is the kind of the build up to this week. So we get the new moon early on Tuesday. Next day, Neptune goes into Pisces. Next day, Sun goes into Scorpio. And now we're going to be starting to be more aware of these Scorpio like things. And things are going to get a lot more emotional, a lot more water. And if you don't know how to swim, if you don't even know how to tread water, you can easily find yourself getting swept up in the current. You can easily find yourself getting swept up in the current. We're about to see over the next several weeks such a hit of nostalgia bias where we think that because something might have given us a good feeling in the past that it must still be good. Oh my God, let me say that again. Just because something in the past gave us a good feeling, that's going to give us a good feeling now. That we're going to be like, nah, maybe it's time to look at that and discard it. Now, whether we discard it immediately or not, it's going to be up to us. But that's kind of where we are with this energy. So, in short, with this new moon, don't shoot the messenger. Pay attention to the message. Pay attention to the oneness. Pay attention to the essence of what it is speaking and saying to you. That's what's going to be most important. And then the other thing, if anything I can say, any other advice I guess I can give is to find your peace. Carve out your peace. And it doesn't necessarily, and like, it's all you have to do is a little bit each day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, 30, an hour, however long you want to commit to it. But at the very least, 5 minutes a day. Carve out your peace. Whether that's reading a good book, whether that's meditating, going for a walk, listening to some good music. Carve out your peace, because that's what's going to help us get through this. That's what's going to help you to swim. That's what's going to help you to be able to tread water. And that's the thing with all this water energy too. So like, it's not like some days you're going to feel like Michael Phelps. Some days you're just going to be treading water. Some days you'll have like some floaties, right? Some day you're going to, sometimes you'll get tired with swimming and stuff like that. And I get it. I think a lot of people right now are tired. A lot of people are tired. That's the other thing that this Neptune going back into Pisces is going to bring up is just how tired people really are. And all aspects of life, just how tired they are. But this is about still, where can we find that extra gear and that resolve? Because that's really a lot of the Scorpio energy, especially with Mars there. And then when the moon comes with Mars and when it comes with Mercury, hopefully we can remind ourselves of that second gear that we have that's deep down within all of us, so we can make it through these moments and we will be okay. I that's part of my idealism, that we will ultimately be okay, and that humans and society will be made it through so many things before, and we will continue to make it through things. But especially considering everything that's going on in the world, especially with freaking 3i Atlas that's coming through and shit, yeah, things are about to change big time. But we are going to get blasted with a bunch of nostalgia and things from the past and people wanting to reclaim things. People are going to start rummaging through the garbage bin of the things that Saturn, that is retrograded here, has already thrown out. And that's going to be difficult, because I think it's going to hit everybody. So no one is impervious to this. We're all going to be rummaging through the metaphorical spiritual dumpster bin out back, and we're going to be trying to look for that one little keepsake that we've held on for such a long time that doesn't really do anything. It just sits on the counter and takes up space, right? And maybe we will remember some good times about that, and we'll invoke some nice memories, but ultimately at the same time, Is it serving you in this moment, and is it going to come with you on the journey? Probably not. And that's honestly okay. So, but like I said, no need to necessarily make a bunch of decisions right now. Saturn is still retrograde, so we don't necessarily have to make these massive, big decisions right now. But at the same time, don't hesitate, especially if you know that something is right. So let's get into the cards for this new moon. The games are about to start. I need to make some food. Hopefully my birds can get this win. I love, and I'm not even from Philadelphia, but I love how there are other bird teams. Because I live here just outside of Atlanta, and I'm also an Atlanta Falcons fan, right? So, but I love how Go Birds only applies to one of the bird teams. So, I love that. Give this another good shuffle. Then all right, let's see what we got for the new moon in Libra. 28 degrees. Quincunxy, my moon. 28 degrees. We have the 8 of Wands. Said things are going to happen fast. Energy is going to happen fast, but we do not want to hesitate for too long. We really don't want to hesitate for too long. And, you know, I think if you hesitate, it's because you're focused way too much on the details, and you're focused way too much on it looking perfect. Right? This is kind of a go for it energy, because we don't really there's not really a ton of time left as far as like going for things. Like I said, Neptune's going to go back into the Pisces. That's going to slow shit down. And then we're going to have Uranus going to go to Taurus. That's going to slow shit down. So it's not like you have a ton of time to make like these decisions, or at the very least get the conversation started. You know, start drafting somewhat of a plan, but like even before the plan is fully drafted, start working on it, and then figure shit as you go along. You know what I'm saying? So it's good to have a game plan, but game plans always change. Look at sports. This is how teams are able to fight in sports, and how they're able to come back. Maybe you're getting your ass kicked. You got your ass destroyed in the first half, right? You're down by like 3 or 4 touchdowns, but teams adjust their game plan, right? They adjust their game plan based off of the new experiences and the new information that they have. Their perfect game plan going into the game didn't work. So instead of getting caught up on the perfect game plan not working, adjust accordingly. And then you can come back from behind. I have the Fool card in reverse, which is very interesting with this too. It's like, the Fool definitely it goes on the adventure, right? But this is also about like, where are we maybe stepping into places that we've already gone to that aren't actually going to do anything, and that's the thing about this, we have to take some new bold action. The foolish thing would be to travel down a path that you've already traveled down, thinking that you're going to get some new result. Then you're not going to, right? I'll get one more follow-up card to that, because I think those cards together definitely makes it rather interesting. So yeah, we have the Emperor, right? So yeah, this is about you have to seek your own like your inner authority. That's really what I'm getting here. The Emperor. I think of generally emperors in the past, they were endowed by God to lead and stuff like that. But this is about finding that leader within you and not waiting for someone. I think that's the thing here. I think this Fool in reverse is actually someone that's waiting for someone to give them the answer before they can actually act and move, instead of seeking their own inner authority and be like, nah, fuck it, I'm gonna go for this thing anyways. And here's the thing too, just because the energy is slowing down in many places, and just because the energy won't necessarily be ripe for making these or taking big risks or taking big decisions, because of these planets that are retrograding back into their previous signs, doesn't mean that you can't do anything. So you don't necessarily have to wait. That's the thing about astrology too. So like, There are propensities and maybe better times to act or to do something or make a decision. You don't have to wait until the moon is in a certain sign before you do something. You can go ahead and do it, right? So that's the beautiful thing about this. Every aspect teaches us something, and every aspect has its strengths and its weaknesses. That includes if planets are in a home sign, because oftentimes we take those places for granted. We take for granted when Venus is in Libra. We take for granted when Jupiter is in Cancer because it likes to be there. So we don't necessarily see the challenges that can come from that and from taking those energies for granted. Oftentimes, and I was talking to someone about this yesterday, one of my guests, which he's into astrology at work, right, is that we were talking about like, oppositions and squares, that's where the growth happens. Triangles and sextiles, like there's nice energy there, but the most growth doesn't usually happen there. It happens in the tougher aspects, the challenging ones, the squares, the oppositions. So like if you have a planet in a bad spot, like say for me, for example, I have Mercury in Sag, it makes sense. Mercury and like I can see how Mercury and Sag makes sense for me, and I can see how it's challenging. But at this, because sometimes it is hard for me to actually articulate what's going on up here in my imagination. Sometimes it's hard for me to articulate it, right? Because in many ways it can be very, very abstract, right? So that's the thing about it. But like I said, seek your own inner authority. And how do you do this? You do this by what I said earlier, carving out your piece. Take 5 to 10 minutes a day to carve out your piece. So stop listening to the world. Stop listening to all these other people. Stop listening to whatever. And yes, I think other people can inspire us. People can motivate us. Don't shoot the messenger. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to come back to yourself. And you have to come within yourself and be like, okay, so it's about seeking your own inner authority and not waiting for someone else to tell you what to do. That's going to do it for your new moon in Libra video. I trust that this message will assist you on your journey for this new moon and throughout the week. Of course, we'll be back once that moon goes into Scorpio and go a little bit more in depth with that. But y'all take care, stay blessed, and I will see y'all next time. Later. There.